This is OK here, and we have some live action from board 2 of the Crazyhouse Team League. And the Crazyhouse Team League is actually Crazyhouse 960 this season. If you can want to see all the past games, they are in Lichess Studies, and I can paste the links with these videos. That's part 1 and part 2 of these studies. We have over 90 games played so far, but still a good number still to be played. And we're now going to cover a board 2 matchup between Crazyhome on Team Plotkin and LegionDestroyer. Which team is he on? LegionDestroyer is board 2 of Fumitox's team. So it's the Fumi Legion team against the Plotkin team in the Crazyhouse 960 Team League. And we're playing on pychess.org, whose developer, GB Tammy, is actually in the chat. Now I'm a little bit behind. Let's just go back to the initial position, just have a little it'll go quite quickly, but just to try and quickly have a look at this position. What do we think about this position? I think this pawn needs to be pushed to develop the queen. How are we going to do it? We're going to probably have to... So we could potentially fianchetto that bishop, so maybe we might push this pawn, maybe. But the question is how to control the centre. And probably with the knight, so I'd say sometimes sort of b4, c4 and knight c3, potentially. But a lot of the powerful pieces are on the queen side, and the king is on the king side. So I'm thinking the king just looks just a tiny bit weak. So maybe knight c3 would leave the king too weak, and maybe the knight should go the other way. But then maybe you'd want to push this pawn before taking the knight out. Okay, so just these sorts of thoughts. Otherwise, the rook in the centre is great for this push. Okay, so let's see how the players thought about it. Crazyhome indeed wants to develop the queen quickly, and LegionDestroyer thought exactly the same thing, just pointing directly at the king side. I want to go a little bit more slowly. Develop the bishop. The bishop develops naturally here, given you want to push the b pawn anyway. And develop the knight towards the king side. This is actually protecting g7, so quite an important move actually. Knight here, and so obviously the threat is this. Okay, and this is a nice move, just shoring up this. And interestingly, actually from the initial position, this move wasn't possible because too much pressure on this e5 square. So maybe even on move 1, e5 first might have been necessary. But otherwise, you see, White had got quite a little bit of initiative. Okay, so a little bit of light square weaknesses in Black's position. So I'd say White has a slight edge here, but this is very early days, and as we see in Crazyhouse 960, things change very fast. Okay, going for this a5 push. So what's the idea? So he could push again with tempo and hit the knight, but the knight, he seems to be ignoring this. Black has the same ideas as he has, and if you go here, well, the dark squares seem quite well covered. So, okay, so it's the same issues here. And again, White never managed to push this either. And I'm wondering why not. Why couldn't he have pushed a Barrett? Yeah, maybe he could have. I'm not sure. But then maybe the dark squares would have been weak. So instead, he's going for blocking this with a knight outpost. We're going to probably... But isn't that sacking a pawn? So takes, queen takes. Okay, so he's sacking a pawn for initiative, it looks like. And I'm not sure about that, but okay. It's certainly an interesting idea, and he could definitely get initiative by pushing e4 here. Now I was thinking he could push e4 here, and he hits the bishop with tempo, but he does block in his own bishop. So interestingly, he sacks his own bishop first, and goes directly for the attack. And I'm still saying, why not e4? You're hanging g2 here. So obviously taking g2 just takes the rook with check. It's not so pleasant. But then bishop takes rook, then knight takes. It still looks slightly hairy. Knight h3 might be an issue. So bishop takes pawn. Hang on, bishop takes pawn. You can't put pawn takes rook. Knight h3 is not a threat because the rook's defending it. I think the point is that pawn takes rook comes with check, and that's why Black had to move out the way. And White cements in this really strong control. So we saw this move was forced in the early opening exchanges. because of the pressure on g7, and that is white's trump card, is the light square weaknesses. However, still, I mean, I'm amazed. Oh, and okay, but I'm still struggling. Why not bishop takes g2? White doesn't have a pawn in hand to put on f7, which of course would be lethal if he did. But okay, LegionDestroyer runs away, kind of really sticks it in Crazyhome's face that his whole attack is just nothing now because the king has just run away to the other side of the board. And so I'd say black is really better here. But I'm continuously confused as if my position is wrong because g2 is still hanging this whole time. But of course, yeah, g2. So castles, knight here. So the idea is if bishop takes g2 now, it's knight takes pawn, king takes, and then king takes bishop simply could be played. So okay, still no time to play bishop g2. Takes the bishop, check. It's a check. So and this is interesting because if you take him this way, it would be knight here. Check, king here, and the king, I don't know, the king would be blocking up the queen. I think that would be actually quite favourable for white. So pawn takes. So Crazyhome has maintained some kind of attack. The only problem is he lost his knight, which was protecting the e4 push. And bishop takes g2 finally comes. Okay, so I guess LegionDestroyer figured he had enough room for his king here. Knight takes e7, king. It's not blocking up the bishop, and so he figured he had enough room. Rook c1. Okay, so white's going to get a little bit of play on the king, but I think, yeah, things can be covered up. Is there anything here? Takes, not bishop takes rook, because then pawn takes pawn check would be a little bit, feels a little bit awkward. So just taking back, yeah, because it's coming with check, not grabbing the material just yet. And okay, does this? Okay, what do we? He could take the pawn. Or could he do something else? He just goes for the rook. And the pawn can never take the knight because queen comes in with checkmate, so that's a bit of a thinker. Pawn at g2, trapping the bishop. Rook takes pawn. Okay, so white is significantly worse here. There's a mate threat with at h2, rook g1. This is very close to being over. Bishop at h3. So Crazyhome he's out of pieces and it looks just almost over. As an example, pawn h2, king takes. Oh no. I mean, come on, let's go back a move. Pawn h2, if you run, you're back rank mated, so you have to take it. So knight at, and if you go back again, you have another pawn and you're mated. So pawn at, king takes, knight at, king out. And then and then pawn here. And if king takes knight, if king takes knight, rook here, king here. No, that's not quite work. Maybe rook here. Yeah, rook here. So if king were to take the knight, you put a rook here, king here, and knight here, checkmate. That would work. So that was a mate there. Or if you run this way with your knight still here, this knight can come. No, new knight. You've got a second knight. You could just use a new knight here, forcing king takes knight and rook here checkmate. So there was a clear forced mate here, just with all checks. But instead he goes for bishop takes g2, bishop takes e6, and now LegionDestroyer should again have been just trying to calculate a mate here. Like just simply rook here, and the two knights will surely mate. If the king ever comes to f3, you put a knight on g5. The king comes here, you put a knight on h5. So you get two knights on g5 and h5. Where can the king go? It could have only gone. Okay, it could have run this way. So it's not so. Yeah, I'm not making it. It's not so clear. Yeah, so I'm sure there was a mate, but okay, LegionDestroyer going for a materialistic approach, hoping that white doesn't have enough material to do anything. And Crazyhome's time is also low. I mean, he has a check, but there is nothing here. I mean, black has all the pieces in the world to mate here, and it's all over. So where did it all go wrong? So not playing e4 earlier, instead of just in this position here, I'd say e4 first, block that diagonal, then do this. That was a maybe slight opening error. And then here, just not recognizing this is a serious threat. Okay, pawn sack, again, e4. Really important, e4. But okay, now let's just watch the mate. So a bishop check, here, rook here check, here, can we see the mate? So notice actually this square is covered by the knight and this square is covered by the bishop. So, not so clear. If rook here check, that would make sense, but king here. Knight here check stops the king running back. So king has to go here or take the bishop. If he goes here, just a simple pawn will mate him. So he will definitely take the bishop. And then the second knight here will mate. So that's all over. Two knights and here. The two knights control the escape and the pawn controls this escape. And he finds exactly that mate. Okay, so well played, Legion Destroyer, taking the first game. Since we're here, I might as well just copy the link into the calendar. This is what the players themselves would normally do after all the games were over. So go into the calendar, Legion Destroyer against Crazyhome, and paste the link in. And since I'm also here, and since I'm streaming on Lichess, I want to show you how to put these links into a Lichess study. So what you do is you just refresh the game after the game, and you could request analysis within PyChess, but much better is to take the PGN and go to a Lichess study. And you could actually you can go Tools, Import Game, and then use the analysis feature, Analyze Game option within Lichess. But I'm not going to use computer analysis. I'm just going to add it to a study. So you just click on PGN in the new chapter. Click on PGN, paste it. You don't need to give a title. It will be retitled automatically. So you've got CrazyHome-LegionDestroyer, and while they start the next game, I'm just going to play through this one. Let's see if it agrees with me about this e4 move. Yeah, e4. Yeah, okay. It's not saying it's the best move actually. It really wants c4, but I did. In fact, I was saying at the beginning, c4 was the way to play this to get out that bishop, but then e4 as well. So but it has a different line without playing e4. c4, bishop b7, f3. Okay, so it wanted f3. Interesting. But e4 is another way of playing it. Okay, but then the critical point when it all goes to pot, as it were. Yeah, this pawn sack goes from plus 1.1 to minus 2.8, and then even after this, you must play e4. Like, this is really important in this position. It's the best move in this position. So this is interesting. But still, e4 has to be played at some point, but the problem is he didn't want to lose his attack, so he does this. And again, so bishop takes g2 is very strong here, but he could have saved that castle move for a move later, like white sacks a pawn, and then I'm just going to castle. In fact, what would happen if you just sack a pawn here? h5, bishop takes g2, white sacks a pawn, hoping to dump a pawn on f7. Amazing. This is amazing. I was thinking that's the time to get out, but yeah, it does say king c8. That's castles. Yeah, okay. So castles. Exactly. That's exactly what I was predicting. So you give away a second pawn, but you're getting crushed. Yeah. Bishop takes h1 coming next. What next? Again, could even have afforded bishop takes g2 here, but okay. He wanted to defend the threats first. So LegionDestroyer very patiently defending the threats. But yeah, now white actually got a bit of counterplay. But the move he missed was bishop at a6. That's a nice move, and now this is bishop takes g2 is not a threat, and that would have really helped, because then you got control of the e4 square. That would have really helped. I mean, it's still apparently not so good, but it just would have really sorted out. But now when bishop takes g2 comes, it still thinks white's actually doing okay, but with a really critical move. Bishop at f3. Why? I don't understand. It's as if something's gone wrong with the machine. I'm going to delete that. Knight takes e7, king c7. And it's not moving this rook. Okay. Yeah. So it was just some kind of glitch on the engine, which is giving weird results. Check, and then rook h2. Well, okay. Let's get back to the live action. I know I'm just going to be a tiny bit behind the live play, but that's okay because I don't want to interfere with anything. Live action. We're going to just be consistent and look from Crazyhome's point of view. Also, Crazyhome is my board too, so I have an interest in this match. I have to declare my interest. Okay, so c4 played immediately. I'm thinking c4 is important, but I'm thinking e4 and b3 or b4 are more important even, potentially. But I guess one advantage of c4 is that actually supports an e4 push later. But okay. And Crazyhome learnt his lesson from the first game, definitely. I didn't push this pawn to block this diagonal, that was a mistake. And I think that's a good move. Diagonal, okay, but this is important as well, to develop your queen. So please develop the queen. So he's developing. Yeah, this is the problem. By not playing this sooner, the queen is just. It's going to be really hard to develop the queen when the bishop's stuck on e4, staring down at this diagonal. So, slight oversight from Crazyhome here. Because how do you develop this queen now? I guess you have to chase away that bishop. At some point play this, but you can just back off. Play this. Yeah, okay, so it's okay. He can still maintain control in other ways. You go knight here, bishop here. So actually I'm not so worried. It's okay. That bishop can be chased away if you really want to. Oh, I spoke too soon. Because the chasing away has to happen now. Knight here, bishop here, bishop here, and then you've succeeded in chasing him away. If he ever goes bishop back here, pawn here. And by giving, I thought, yeah, no rush, okay, he's taking his time. With this move, bishop g2, so now you could still go knight here, bishop g2, e5, but e5 doesn't come with tempo. It's not nearly so strong. And anyway, e5 is opening up this diagonal. Knight here, bishop g2. So I really like the way white has played this. He's got one bishop on the long diagonal, the other bishop on the other long diagonal. The queen is developed, and black's got quite good control of the center, but it's going to be very hard for black to develop. And again, he goes for this h5 push, h4, stops it in its tracks. But this creates some light squared weaknesses potentially around the white king. But as we saw last game, the king could even evacuate to the other side of the board. Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah, that is the way to develop the queen. If you can't develop it normally, you can develop, say, to h7 or h6. So actually, this is not so bad. So the bishop was staring at a wall of pawns, so Crazyhome's developing his bishop like this. Notice bishop takes knight, knight takes is fine. So it wouldn't be good for black just to exchange. And now bishop takes knight, probably just, they're decisions. But still, that's something for the future. If ever black needs a knight, he has this option. Something I've noticed in Crazyhouse 960 is it's not always worthwhile to move the bishops. It's better to develop more pieces. So what I'm trying to say is, if a bishop is already on a nice diagonal, it's not always a good idea to move it again. it's better to try and finish off development first. But I think the reasoning is he's thinking of getting the queen to h7. That's his reasoning. Okay, that is a reasonable idea. White does castle queen to h7, so that's black's plan. Okay, okay. He needs to play this so that he can quickly castle either side. He does this nice move going for this weak square, and it's forcing. I thought it was forcing the trade of the bishop of the knight, which would have been good for black. So hi there, Julian Proleco. Greetings. I recognise your name. You're a streamer, aren't you? Yeah, I think I follow you. So yeah, this is a nice hit on this pawn. I thought it was forcing the trade of this quite nice bishop for that knight, but it isn't. But this move, I mean, that's okay for. I mean, if white is just shuffling his rook around to a dud file, that's quite good. This is Crazyhouse 960, yes, and then we're analysing on Lichess afterwards. So I think black has somehow got back into it. So the initial position, for those just joining us, was this, and I was saying in the first game that it went this and then this, and we're playing now with colours reversed, and black never played. Crazy Home as white didn't play this e4 move, but played the g pawn. This time he does the opposite, and I was thinking he doesn't play the g pawn soon enough, and he gets hit by this bishop hitting his queen on the long diagonal. Okay, he can chase that bishop away, but he has to maneuver things a little bit differently because of that bishop on the long diagonal. And I think he did quite a nice job doing that. Some weird rook shuffling. So you see, because of loss of tempo of white, I think black has maybe caught up a little bit on development. And now a4. So what's the threat? Takes the queen. So there's no yes, no. It's takes and drop a pawn on h3. That's a really nice idea. The light square's in white's position, and I was thinking all the time, why not move this bishop? But actually what he was doing was very smart. This bishop is actually perfectly placed on f8, just to go straight for the attack on h3, so he didn't lose a tempo doing that. And if he ever needs a knight or a pawn, he's got kind of some ammunition he can pick up. So idea here is pick up a pawn, dump a pawn on h3, ideally another pawn on g2, and just start a huge attack while your king is actually quite safe. So really nice idea from Crazy Home as black. Knight f3, so challenging the central knight. So if ever takes this huge trade, if there were some huge trade, no, this knight is reinforced. It's defended 3 times, it's attacked 3 times. That means that square is under control. The real square, you have to always watch out. What's the square which is, it's not red because it is defended once and it's attacked once, but it's yellow. So I'm marking it yellow because it's attacked and defended an equal number of times. So if black here simply takes a pawn and puts it on h3, and there's no need to do anything about this knight, it's well defended, and this is what happens. Takes, and at h3. So black has a huge advantage in this position, because his king, notice there are no weak squares around his king. I mean, this square is not weak, it's this would be the attack square into black's position, but it's defended, for now. So a serious edge for black here. The bishop drops back, and black is begging for another pawn to put on g2 perhaps, maybe. He does that, and he does it with tempo, because it's hitting the rook. And like I said, this is the attack square into black's position. Okay, the reason is because there is a slightly weak square in black's position, and it's f7. And this is why it's the attack square. You give away a pawn, but he could get some... But this pawn can just be taken, by the way. Any check can just be... firstly, there are no checks, and secondly, any check can be blocked. So I hope he just takes it. He does just take it. And there's no... I want a pawn anyway. Bishop takes pawn. So we see here white is desperate. White is desperate. What does white want? Because even if pawn here, king takes, and this square is defended. So it's true f7 is weak, but because e6 is so well defended, okay, I see what he wants. He wants pawn f7 and knight to g5, and that is just mating, basically. King here, queen here, check, king here, and knight to f7, checkmate. So really serious threat, actually, from white. Bishop takes pawn is actually a mate threat. I can't believe it. It was allowed. I mean, so here, as white, as black, I would just defend the threat. But interesting, interesting. This move is a cunning way of defending, because the bishop actually protects the knight. Yes, interesting. So pawn here, king takes, and white didn't have this move. So that was a really interesting way of playing it from Crazyhome. Taking the knight to defend g5, and then maybe he's got actually a mate threat of his own somewhere. Let's see if he does. Takes back. Now he's got to defend the mate. Knight here, if you go back here, queen here is mate. If you run here, queen here, king here, knight here is checkmate, as we said. So rook takes. Oh, this is again very, very creative defense. So he's taking pieces while defending, because he knows that actually knight takes rook is going to weaken h2. Like this h2 square at the moment is protected, but h2, the moment the knight moves, h2 is a weak square. You dump a pawn there, king takes, knight here. You have your own mating attack. It's completely lethal. Knight, yeah, so that's why knight takes rook doesn't happen, because knight takes rook, pawn takes, and there are too many weaknesses in white's position, and white doesn't have a knight to continue the attack. He wants knight here. So instead, LegionDestroyer. So huge advantage to black here. But you have to, I said, we have to watch out with this game. You can get crazy swings in Crazyhouse 960. Just because pieces are in unfamiliar positions, even in Crazyhouse you can get huge swings. But so with this you have to think, is there a threat? Bishop takes, king takes, knight takes rook. This is the thing I'm slightly concerned about. But you can just block and notice all the light squares are actually well defended. So the only square which is not defended is this g5 square is the only really sensitive square, and the rook is defending it. So bishop takes pawn, king takes. It's a little bit hairy, but there are no checks. Knight takes, rook takes, pawn here check, bishop takes, and you'd be safe. But wait, white would have a rook at g5, queen here. So this is extremely risky defense to go straight for the attack from Crazyhome. The reason I say it's risky is because he is totally winning and didn't need to take any risks. He has enough material in hand to just solidify. White only has, like this. White only has one trump card, bishop takes g6, and he's going to play it. Knight takes e5, takes, bishop takes g6. Like this is the only moves he had, and Crazyhome is kind of daring him that with a pawn, rook, and queen he can't mate. And I think he's right, but it is quite close because you have rook here check, king here, pawn here check, and so he is getting that pawn in. King here, queen here check, king here, and you're just about safe because white just needs one more pawn to mate you. And the thing is, white could just pick up that pawn quickly, bishop g7, but then he gets mated with at h2. Okay, so this, you don't take back the bishop, that's very important. Pawn at h2, if king here, queen here mate, if king takes, knight comes in, pawn here and queen here mate. So I think he's just safe, but he's really played... Oh, there was a way of picking up another pawn. Rook takes pawn. So this is really risky. This is really risky now. Queen here check, king here, rook here check. It's just trying to... White is just desperately trying to pick up extra material. I was thinking king f6, but then bishop takes f6, takes... So I was thinking... I was thinking king f6 was fine. White only has a pawn. Maybe it's not fine, because pawn here check, pawn here, and run away to... Okay. I was thinking run here and just try and get away to here, and I think that's okay, no? Because if you go here, the queen can't come in, there's no queen check. There's bishop takes pawn, just simply takes. There's pawn here check covering h6, but you could just run here, and you can always just run back to h7. I think that was fine. King takes rook now looks extremely dangerous, because check, and we're up to the live position, and I'm just so worried that Crazyhome has walked into a mate here. Because the king is cut off. This file cuts off the king. There's no safety. The only safety he has is that this knight is protecting pawn checks on f5. So Julian Prosecco says white should probably try to get a pawn so he can go g6, f7, knight g5, etc. Oh, yeah, that was exactly it. And then king c6, rook e6. So if king c6 in this previous position, king c6, rook takes bishop. True. Rook takes bishop. Oh yes, that's true. Rook takes bishop. Pawn drop. Not bishop takes, because if your bishop takes, then the queen might come in. Rook takes bishop, just pawn drop. I think it's holding, because there's nothing to stop you running, and I think that the threats are too great here. But okay, he goes this way, and this is scary as heck. So king f5, okay, pawn here, check. Oh, you can't go knight takes, because the knight is pinned. This is really scary. King takes. He's got his king into a mating net. It's so frustrating. Pawn here, check, and only one pawn left. And that's the pawn white needs to mate. That was such a sad game. Because Black is completely winning. He just... Okay, we're going to look at the line. I'm sure king c6 is fine. So the way we look at a line, you refresh a live game. This is on pychess.org, pychess.org. It's a spin-off of Lichess by GB Tammy. And now we transfer it. You add a new chapter to a study, click it in the PGN, put it in. So even here, Black is winning with king g4. There's no checks. Why are there no checks? King g4, at f3, king g3. My goodness, crazy home, that is so sad. And he took the wrong way and then it's mating. In fact, even at f3 is mating. At f3, king f5, e4 is mate. Oh no, king g5, that is so sad. There was a safe square for the king. It was on g3. Because white doesn't have like a second... If white had a second pawn, g3 wouldn't be safe. But this is... You bring your king in and you just mate with your king. This is incredibly sad. It was very important in this position to do king f5. So king e4 again falls into the same pattern. So the king run, it was very important to go here. Indeed, yeah, black mates with either h2 or f2, and it's like impossible to stop both. But I would say in this position, oh yeah, there's a really easy defense. It's just at d2. That's just easy, because white's only getting pawns, and the black king is safe here. Now, what about just simply running the king here? This is what I was thinking. So rook takes e6. Just simply going at d6. That's the line I was thinking. Takes, takes, takes. Okay, so it is a little bit hairy. It's a little bit hairy, to be honest. Puts another rook in. They just go here. Bishop takes g2, takes. So this is sketchy, but you're okay. Bishop at f3, and the reason is you're just running to this a7 square, and you are safe there, surprisingly. Queen takes knight, okay, but if you're sacking your queen, you really don't have enough to finish this off. I do have blockers even on the h-file, protected by the knight. And if c5 check, just king a6. Oh, that's awful, but so I'm going to delete the queen takes f6. So c5, even just this idea, if this, then king a8, because you've got no pawn checks on a8. So even if you there isn't even a rook check. So bishop takes b7, trying to be safe, and then you get mated, because you can even just dump a queen. Obviously, if king here, rook here, king takes, then you bring your knight in with check. King to g1, king to h1. It's going to be the same thing. No, I think so. King to g1 is a really easy mate. Oh, is it? I was thinking it was. Yeah, so it's not. Yeah, it is. It's just a classic back rank mate. You clear away the rook, and you get your back rank mate. So this is that's a kind of, it's a long mate, but it's actually really straightforward. So it wouldn't require any thought. King to h1 actually is a little bit more tricky. So do you take the pawn? What else do you do? So rook at g2, king takes. You have another rook. The really sweet way of playing this is knight at h3, threatening rook at g1. So he has to take it, but then he's allowed rook at h1. Legion Destroyer. He said, I'm lucky he took the rook on e5. I didn't know how to prevent the king from going to a7. Indeed. And you are still, Julian says, you are still losing, which is funny because he can play king g4. Yeah, I'll just show the line again quickly. Even when he went the way he did, That's the path. You try and mate me. And now I'm threatening double mate and there's no defense. Bam! Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed the stream. Thanks so much. Hi there, GB Tammy. Thank you for the PyTest website, and still I recommend people to take the PGNs and put them on lichess and study them. I'm going to paste this study in the Twitch chat if people want to continue looking at it, and I'll paste it also with the video. It's been a real pleasure to cover some of this Crazyhouse 960 action yesterday and today. Thank you for joining me, and have a good day, guys. Good. Bye.